Hi there from Bugeye guys, and today we're going to talk about VIN numbers. But first I just want to show you some of the cool stuff we're working on. This is an amazing custom car. If you can see, this is all stitched with red and piping red, and it has a red steering wheel and a chopped windshield. All these great features, and same with Gumby, which is my car that I've had since high school. These are two of our Super Sprites, and then over here we have the very first production Bugeye. Just amazing, the contrast between radical and very stock. And then this other car, which we call Seabiscuit, is a survivor car. So I'm going to show you really about the numbering on these cars, specifically the VIN numbers. But before we get started, just a quick commercial. We're sorting out these cars at a very high level. We're trying to make them as wonderfully reliable as we can, better than new, upgrading them. We put 5-speed in that Morris Minor. These are actually also 5-speed cars. So we can modify any classic English car, and if you'd like us to pick up your car for you, we'd be delighted to bring it here and sort it out. Anyway, give us a call. Let's take a look at some VIN numbers. So VIN numbers. The most important number on these cars is the one that will be on your title or your transferable registration, and it happens to be right here. We'll take you in there in a second so you can see it up close. But this is car 18863. And the VIN number that's on this plate underneath the carburetors on the frame rail is AN5L, AN5 being Bugeye, L being left-hand drive, 18863. All right, so there's the factory original VIN plate, and there's a distinctive type font to the way the numbers are stamped. They're stamped inward on these plates. That's a stock original plate. And then this is a British Motor Industry Heritage Trust official heritage certificate, and you can see here VIN number 18863, which would also be commonly called the chassis number. So there are only 3 places on a Bugeye Sprite where you're going to find that VIN number. One is that plate, and the other 2 are in crayon. That's right, most of them are gone. Here's one of them though. This is 18188 and the 63. There's the beginning of the 6, and that's, let's see if the light helps you any. That is when they took the nose off to assemble the car. They would mate the nose with the body, and they would put the VIN number in crayon on the noses. And it's very, very rare to find that still present. So that's one of your 3 opportunities. The second one is on the back of the dashboard. And that's another huge problem because A, it's crayon. We'll put a photo of it in right here, but it's crayon and it's worn off and it's 65 years old, and a lot of times these dashboards get swapped when the cars get restored, so you lose that second VIN reference. And then this plaque is removable with 2 screws, so you've got 2 crayon and 1 removable plaque, and that's how you know where your VIN number is, and there's no other stamping on the car to verify it. And that's a big reason why on Bugeyes we often see crazy numbers, wrong numbers. You'll see as we go through this, dig in a little bit deeper, there are 5 different numbers on these cars and none of them match. All right, so let's take a quick look at some of these dashboards. These are for other projects, and they're restored dashboards that we've recovered. For example, this is going in our blue Tesla-powered Bugeye that we're building right now. That's another thing we're doing is electric conversions. But also here's all this originality, and we try to save this wherever we can. Of course, many of these have the radio knockouts knocked out, so Kenny has welded that shut, and also taking care of any other errant holes that might be on here. But this is kind of fascinating. This would be car 20263, I believe that's what it is. There's that crayon VIN number that I mentioned earlier in this video. And then the other thing that's kind of cool is we know it was a green car. It had a heater. It had an RC, which is rev counter. It had a windshield washer, and it had a miles per hour, MPH speedometer. And you see, again, here's the problem with the crayon. It's difficult to read that, but we've seen so many of them. It's easy for us to read them because we're handling these all the time. But why that was on there is kind of also really cool. They needed to know how to punch this dashboard. And we're looking from behind, but this is the windshield washer hole. And if you didn't have a WW on the back, you obviously didn't want to cut out this hole and cover, the dashboard had to be covered accordingly. the miles per hour. Speedometer would have gone in here. The heater switch would have been WH. I think this is the heater, if I remember correctly. It's on, I'm looking at it in reverse. Yeah, heater here. And heater was optional, but we've never seen a US bound car without a heater. And windshield washers were also optional, but we've never seen one that didn't come fit that way. I'm sure there are some out there, but most of the American cars, and in fact most of the production run came to America, would have had all of these functions. It's very rare for us to see this list not present. So if you look at this dashboard, this is for another project that we're building. This one I think is 34484, would be again that VIN number. And then same thing, you have H, rev counter, MPH, and windshield washer. So again, here's that, the washer pump hole, the wiper, the heater, there, H here for heater again. And lastly, this I believe says white, this one being green, so they knew how to cover these dashboards before they put them aside as they were building the cars. Okay, here's the first number of many that people get incorrect, and that's this number right here. If you can read that, 44159, I think. And back to all these issues with numbers, once again, you have body work, painting, priming, filling these holes over time, restorations, and that number goes away. Not to mention that it's buried under the wiring harness, but that number represents part one of a Bugeye's journey to be manufactured. John Thompson Motor Pressings in England would make this tray. They'd make the frame rails, they'd stamp them, they'd stamp these panels, these inner fenders, and basically build up the lowest portion, the foundation of the Bugeye. But be that as it may, the initial stamping of these cars, like the tunnel and the floor pans and these frame rails, all of that was done at Thompson. So Thompson made the tray, and then the car was shipped on a truck to Press Steel, and Press Steel made the body panels, and they made the nose, and their number was placed here. That was the BAE number. And you'll see that number on the heritage certificate. So it's in range, it's 19146, and this is 18886 or whatever. So they're close to one another, but not an exact match. They also, once again, we have that famous yellow crayon. They would crayon the body number on the back shelf. And again, on this car, Seabiscuit, an original leaf green car, there's the original leaf green paint and the original crayon number, which is really wonderful to see. All right, so just to recap, here is the John Thompson Pressings number on Seabiscuit, and it's a number that has no bearing on any of the numbers that we've talked about, but it's in range. Just like on the blue car, that's the number that Thompson would have stamped into the sheet metal. And then here's yet another number, which is the engine number, 18927. So we started with the stamped tray. We took the car and sent it to a place that made the body panels. We then sent it to another location where they painted the car. Then we sent it back to Abington, where MGs were being made, and Abington started to assemble it. And that engine came from the Morris factory and was put probably on a dolly next to a whole line of Bugeyes. And around 18,000, they had an engine with around 18,000, and it went into this car. And then it was recorded in the book. So you end up with this heritage certificate, which we'll look at again now that we've talked about some of the pieces. And the heritage certificate, this is all that was recorded. You have the VIN number, which we talked about on the frame. You have the BAE number, which we talked about from Press Steel. And then you have the engine number. And that's it. Unfortunately, in this case, they all match. This certificate matches everything on this car. But we don't have any record anywhere for that Thompson stamping number. And if you come over here, you'll see in this door panel that there's an AN5 number. And many of the cars are registered or titled to this number because it's the easiest one to find. You open the door, hey, there's the number, that must be the VIN. But no, that is what for this video I'm gonna call the mystery number. Some people call it the stamping number, but there's no record of these numbers. They're not recorded on the certificate. They're not recorded in the ledger for the Heritage Trust. And it's a mystery who put this number on here and when, but you have 5 vendors or components of BMC all doing their work, and the numbers along the way were to help them keep the pieces together and sort of designated with each particular car. All right, so let's talk about what we've learned in this complicated system on car 501. We know this is the first genuine article. There's a bunch of history that we have about the car and all the records. We know from all of its unique features, it is absolutely the very first production Bugeye Sprite. They started at 501, this is 501. This is 501's VIN plate, which we'll show you in a minute. But this is also 501's heritage certificate, and it's AN5L 501. AN5 being Bugeye, L left-hand drive, 501 first Bugeye. What's really interesting though, is when you look at the plate, which we'll show you in a minute, there's no L on the plate. And how could that be? Here's how. They made a mistake. They may not have known for certain that it was going to be a US bound car for the first one. It's really hard to know. It may have just been an error. But the archivist who controls all these records was kind enough to put on our heritage certificate that it was effectively a typo. So when we look in a minute here at the plate, you'll see there's no L, and this is why. And there's the VIN plate there you see missing the L. But again, you can see that distinctive type font of the stamping. If you look back at that 18863 from Seabiscuit, you see it looks like it was stamped by the very same punch. Okay, so next I want to show you this number, which is 1431. Again, it seems to have no bearing on any of the other numbers. We have car 501, we have engine 1 something. The BAE number is here as on the heritage certificates for the body and all that pressed steel did. But here's that Thompson number, and it's 1431, but which is not recorded anywhere, even on car number 1. We don't know that this was recorded anywhere for car number 1, which is amazing. But the interesting thing about this that you'll see in the close-up is that they made a typo with this number as well. The first stamping has the 4 on its side because whoever was installing the number had the stamp rotated 90 degrees. So you have a 4 on its side, and then they started over right underneath. So we have the first car with 2 typos on it. So there you go, you see 1439, and above it is just 1 with a sideways 4. So it looks like he couldn't cross it out, so he just started over. One more interesting, again, human beings made these cars. It was 1958. And that's how they did it. So there you have it, the amazing journey of how to build a Bugeye Sprite in roughly 1958. You had this tray that then traveled on a truck to have a body put on, then traveled on a truck to get painted at the Morris factory, then traveled to Abington where they put the engine in, which had been made off-site. It was just an amazing array of different players and parts and pieces moving around. And how they managed to make 50,000 cars that way is just amazing to me. But that's what we have in the way of numbering. You can only see part of that story by virtue of the fact that you just get an engine, a body, and a VIN number. But that's the best we can get with this heritage certificate. If you'd like one, we can help you in our parts catalog. And in fact, we have parts for these cars. All the parts that we're using for all of these builds are in our parts catalog. We're doing so many wonderful custom things. The team of people here is doing great stuff. And if you have a British car that needs sorting out, we would love to help you and bring it here. So please get in touch. And thanks for watching from Bugeye Guys.